So there may be some new people into HPCA and the community that are with us today that we haven't really done a bit of background on. So I'm just going to do a little bit of backstory just to let people know where we've come from, but also I've got a couple of polls, because you as the collective kind of PMO group generally run and head up the functions that deliver services across the organisations, and therefore you've got a critical role to play, and I'd be really interested in your thoughts around this. So HPCA came out of me coming into the NHS in 2013 as leading as head of corporate portfolio office for Health Education England, and looking around and say, well, where are my people? Where's the community of practice? Where's the profession? But also things like, where are the standards? Where's the training and development? Where's the kind of the workforce development around such a huge employer as the NHS? We all know it's in the sort of top 10 in the world, and you go, how is it possible that there isn't a sort of central coordinated approach to the supporting the project and change profession? I set up a community practice back in 2016, along with the other kind of heads of profession from the other arm's length bodies at the time. Part of that was about just getting started. Excuse me. And starting to raise awareness of the profession. That sort of developed, and we had our first conference 2017, and that was just the 10 organisations. 2019, we expanded the community to try and bring in as many from across the NHS as we could. And in 2019, we had a face-to-face conference, and we had 70 people, I think, from about 60 different organisations, which was fantastic. A part of that was around asking people, do they think that the profession is something that would add value to the NHS, to professionalising? And does it make a difference for patients and service users? Does it improve what the NHS does? A part of that was about voting to continue on the work that we'd started around building the profession, building the community, and bringing people together. But we're not alone in this, and we're not the only ones doing this. So we look to model it on the HFMA, so the Healthcare Financial Management Association. It's a charity, not-for-profit, that's been supporting the finance profession for 75 years. It's been around longer than all the ALBs, and it's going to be hopefully there to provide some stability and direction and support to the profession, but also lobbying on behalf of the profession to help to raise the profile and raise the standards and to bring the community together. But there's a whole host of different associations out there that kind of collectively represent about 220,000 members of staff in the NHS, just in England. The other 4 countries, they represent those as well. A part of it's about how do we work together as groups of organisations and professions to look at the things where we intersect. So if you take finance, for example, where do we intersect with them? Well, things like budget management, business case development, investment decision making. And you can say the same for the other professions. So part of it's about how do we work better with other professions to build our skills, but also to raise their awareness of what we do as a profession so that they understand the skills and competencies that we have. And part of it's about how do we offer training and development to everybody else, because everybody gets involved in projects and change, particularly clinicians, and somebody needs to provide some standards of competence and capability. And so part of that, the role for us as an association is to lobby on your behalf to represent the profession, to support the development of the profession, and also to work collaboratively with others to look at how can we collectively support the NHS and the health and social care sector to improve and bring all of that together. We've got the regional networks, we've got some of the specific interest groups like this one, Heads of Profession Network, Change Management one. But the other element of it is, as well as bringing people together as a community, by the community for the community, is around things like workforce development. At the moment, there is no centralised workforce development, standards, competencies, frameworks, any support to developing the workforce. Now, I was talking to the head of HEFMA, the Healthcare Estates and Facilities Management Association. 55% of their members are over the age of 55. less than 5% are under the age of 25. Unless somebody does some really active workforce planning around estates and facilities, and a pipeline into the profession, every organisation is going to be struggling very soon with that. And the same applies to everywhere else. We know that organisations are struggling to recruit project and change managers, and there's a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul and people kind of being able to move between them, but nobody's able to keep them. So part of what we're here to do as well is to support and lobby to get workforce planning and a pipeline into the profession, building things like apprenticeship programs, looking at developing maybe a graduate scheme, but also how do we support people with talent management and career progression as well. So those are all the things that as an association that we want to do to support you as part of that professional community, the wider NHS and social care in terms of developing the skills, but also future-proofing it so that we've got a pipeline into the profession to support that profession to develop going forward. And I think there's a good point now, because one of the things we're struggling with is we're struggling financially. We look to get organisational membership from organisations because what we want organisations to do is invest in their people. We want them to invest in supporting professional development and improving the organisation's maturity of programme and project management. But because we often don't have a head of profession in place, or we don't have somebody who's a chief project delivery officer or is responsible for it, we're struggling to get to the right people to make a decision about whether this would add value to them and their organisation. So the question is, are we the right organisation to support the profession? And if not, what would be the right thing? Today, which is all around systems. And Richard mentioned that there are several kind of systems out there. And it isn't going to be a case we'll end up with one, but it might be we end up with a consistent system across an ICS. And that would be really helpful to organisations. So I just want to, let me just get slides up. So thank you. So Kate, can I introduce you? And Kate, Goodwin is from, she manages the Southwest Regional Network, so getting that up and running. So please do join from the Southwest if you haven't joined that group yet. Are you there, Kate?
Yes.
Excellent, great. Let's pin you to it.
And Kate's you can't tell who can see what, can you? Really?
Yes. That's great, thank you. And Kate's going to talk all about the work that she's been doing around developing a system for managing the programmes projects across the organisation. And I'll just pass over to you to let you get on with it. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Jo. So I'm going to share some slides with you just briefly, and then I've got them as a backup in case the technology fails. Hopefully you can all see that. And then what I'm going to do is actually give you a live demo of the system. I'm conscious we've not got a lot of time, so this is going to be a whistle-stop tour, but it will hopefully give you a flavour of what we've implemented down here in Somerset. So this is a platform that was designed to cover the whole of the Somerset region. We're an incredibly rural area. As you can see, we've got a range of hospital trusts, hospital types, primary care networks that has come together through the course of 2 mergers since 2020. So it's been a really turbulent time for our community. I had the advantage in one sense of coming to the NHS fairly late from other industries, and I'm very structured by nature, so to come into the NHS, which was very unstructured in terms of project and change management, was really quite an eye-opener. So basically I was asked to head up a project management team. We've been developing the Power platform as we've been going along. I'll moment, and then my team now, as a result of the second merger last summer, we've come together to form a PMO. We are very much in the infancy of trying to put in that standard framework of our internal project manager capability, but also a big ask is around raising the capability of the occasional project managers across the trusts and the clinical services that we support. So we've got a huge focus at the moment on training and education. One of the underlying principles is that you can't get every person who wants to use a project in a project portfolio management environment, because they just don't understand the technical requirements of the system or the technical language. So what we developed was an Excel workbook, which is not like the big consulting companies' SIP management scheme workbooks that frighten everybody to death. But basically, by capturing the project scope, the risks, issues, etc., we introduce the occasional project managers to a very low level but consistent way of managing their projects. We then have other communities like my colleagues in digital, and I'm hoping Kurt Hansen, who's on the call, the digital project managers, for example, are working only through Power Framework. So it's a different setup. But the principle is that wherever you intersect with the developing project management methodologies, it will flow through from manual into the Power Platform. So I'm sure that you will all recognise these sorts of issues. I've shamelessly pinched this from our provider programme framework, but you will see that by consolidating all of the data into a single platform, you can actually save an enormous amount of effort, improve the quality over time, and you can see the data in real time and not have to wait for weeks and weeks of consolidation. So the technical bit, that's the only slide I'm going to talk about. It's built off Microsoft Power Apps, and I know there are other applications out there that do a very similar thing. But basically, we have SharePoint in the back end. We've got a work and collaboration tool link to Microsoft Project and to Planner. So it can do an awful lot of stuff for us. And collectively with Power BI, that makes up our environment. So there's an awful lot of functionality, and we're not using all of it, I have to say up front. So the ask for when I started on this journey was that my director just wanted to see project start and finish dates, and that was it. So that gave us quite a lot of scope to play with. So we have focused very much on capturing project data and portfolios. We've captured very much on risks and issues, and we've worked a lot on reporting. We are developing maturity around benefits. Kurt's doing some good stuff with the digital team on introducing a more formal stage gate governance for effect. So we are building out the maturity. We've not gone with a big bang approach to all of this, because there is an awful lot here, and certainly my organisation's not ready for the maturity level of this. So at this point, I am going to dive in and hopefully give you a live demo of the environment, just to give you a flavour. So, as I said, we've got an environment in two parts, and I simplistically call it the data capture and the data reporting elements. So we can view project program portfolio levels of information. We can drill up, we can drill down. Most of us are used to Microsoft, you know how those sorts of things work. We can filter all these different types of views. We can add further filters to refine the data that we might want to be looking at over here. So it's really comforting to look at if you're used to Microsoft, because you can see that data. So you can see that you can add charts if you want to, or you can hide that if you want more of the data columns available. So I'm just going to follow one of the projects through its capture, if it will load. Here we go. So like our Excel workbook has different tabs, this is exactly the same principle. You've got a tab to capture your project, capture document project, PID information. We can put geographical locations across all of our wards across Somerset if we need to. We're generally quite interested in risks. So the principle for risks, issues, change requests, decisions, all of these things, they're all basically the same format. So once you're used to one of these tabs, then you get very comfortable with the environment very easily. So if I just look at one of these, let's see, I don't know, project plans and escalations, there's a good one. So here is the example of an individual risk form that you can build up over time. So you can have your original current target scores, you can escalate it, you can enter cost exposures, you can also connect it to an issue if your risk, as we know, sometimes actually occurs and it becomes a live issue. We also have the ability to come over to the project controls areas and look at any of these overall logs. So here you will see that the view is going to change, and again you can filter on all sorts of areas of data. So then the other area that people are very interested in is status reporting. So you can follows exactly the same principle with your risk entry. You can come in here and look at a particular series of project status and then filter them out however you want to look at them. Then if I go now across into the Power BI end, because that's where we consolidate the views. So all of the data can be exported, imported via Excel. So you can do that with your project teams or your stakeholders if you want to. But this is the really powerful end of the platform. So we can follow the project through its life cycle, demand, delivery, closure. And we've got a number of different types of projects that we can put in. So as I said, we cover improvement, we cover standard, we cover digital projects. So whichever type of project you are running or supporting, it's captured within these phases. If I go into the delivery phase, just takes a few moments to load. Now we can see that we're starting to get into the fact it's real-time data. So if I look at one of my bookmarks here, you can see that we are starting to go live down. So from here, we can see that these are very interactive. So if we want to say look at a particular project in digital diagnostics, how many live risks are there in digital diagnostics, for example, at program level, you can see that the board changes interactively. I'm going to come down and look at the risk board because that's what we were talking about first. So here we go. I've filtered the risks. So these are currently filtered for all of the live risks. But if we look at a different set of filters that we can apply at the side here, oops, sorry, I've applied them and then hidden them. These are all of the risks that have been associated with that particular portfolio. And you can see most of these are now closed, but there are still some open risks over here. It's interactive, so if you want to just click on risks of a particular score or risks of a particular quality of care and best practice, you will see that it applies those filters in a moment it should do. There we go, quality of care and best practice. So you can see it's really interactive. So if you're in a meeting with the project teams or your stakeholders, you can really have those meaningful discussions on a particular item. I said I was going to show you the RAG history. And if you're a project manager, you love these. Some people can get a bit scared about them. But basically, there's a couple of different views. We've got different reporting periods. So some project teams report monthly, some it's weekly, some it's quarterly. It doesn't really matter. But the principle is that you can filter over these and drill down to get to your level of data. There's a different view as well if you want to track the performance over time. Again, you can do your time slices, you can do your project or program slices in that way. As you can see here, it's quite easy to spot projects that either have not reported for some particular reason or who only have just started reporting in this environment. But visibly, you get that instant view as to who's reported, and then you can go down and try and explore why that might be the case. Then finally, we've got lessons learned features in here that are sort of quite fun to play with. We've got benefits dashboards. Now, our benefits is rather unusual, possibly to a lot of people, because it's designed around the quality quadruple aim categories that we have here in our trust. So that has taken us quite a lot of configuration to get it to work properly, but we believe we are finally there. There is a timeline feature. Remember, I said at the start of my presentation that my director just wanted to see project start and finish dates. Well, there you go. You have a live view of projects. Now, this is our project sandbox environment, so please don't look and say there's projects in history that are 0%. It's fine. It's UAT. And then timelines. Sorry, I'm just gabbling through this. The other thing that I wanted to show you about is how, where you're looking at all of those individual project forms, we all spend an enormous amount of time collating monthly project reports, don't we? Because this is Power BI, you've got some really great functionality. So here is an example of it's timed out on me, project report. So here it is generating in Power BI. She says optimistically. Okay, well, I can show you. Oh, there it is. There it comes. So to pull this together, you can see it's now pulling information from the project summary report. It's pulling information from your status forms. It's pulling together your risks and your issues. So literally at the press of a button, you get a report that's suitable that you can send out to your stakeholders. We can also create the same report in a paginated view, which is our report viewer. That does take a few more moments to generate. So I'm not actually going to generate it because it'll kind of take the gloss off the presentation, but it's basically exactly the same information that we've just seen in the Power BI report, but you can create a decent paginated report, because we all know the stakeholders, if you want to send them the information beforehand, then you can actually do that. So that's a really whiz through feature of how we use our project environment and how it links back through to our base level Excel workbooks. The principle that we've tested is that you can start a team off in Excel and then you can import the data into Power Framework and then move ahead in Power Framework. So I'm conscious as I've been talking that there are comments coming out in the chat, which I'm not sure, Joe, I don't know if you've had a chance to collate them.
Yeah, hi, Kate. So I think at the moment what people are sort of saying is that there's some questions in there. Having the Power BI link ensures it's always a live status that you don't get with the Excel extract, which is great. And in my experience of running corporate PMO, we had a system that did the same sort of thing, and it transformed the amount of time it took you to finish off those reports, because you weren't constantly going back and updating them every time a new bit of information came in. You could just rerun it and load it. And that then gives you the time to work on the value added stuff. So there's also the bit about how does having that then provide you with the opportunities to do other things.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because we're certainly taking the approach here in Somerset that project management of this nature, whether we're working in Excel or we're working with teams through Power Framework, it's a framework they're not used to, and although we've tried to adapt it and make it scalable, the level of maturity is low. So exactly as you've just said, we've taken by making this data capture easier, we can then work with those teams to coach them, to train them, to support them, to gradually over time to improve the quality of the data that they put in, and that is exactly where we see the value building over time.
Absolutely, and I think that's really important, because it's not just the value that this brings, it's the value that it then provides capacity to enable. I'm just mindful that there are some comments in the chat, and I know this is an area of interest. We had a kind of a subgroup working on systems and, you know, bringing systems together and sharing and promoting them and looking at the pros and cons. And a lot of people are looking at, procuring them.
Yeah.
Is there interest? Let me put a comment in the chat. If people are interested in maybe a one-off kind of longer session that looks at bringing together the different systems and the pros and cons and what have people done around those, let me put that in the chat, and then what we'll see is who's interested, and what we can do is we can put on a specific one. If you're happy to come back and do a more in-depth session with folks.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm mindful this is just a kind of teaser at the moment.
Exactly.
But it's important to understand that these things are going on out there, and that there are others using different systems. But I think coming together, have a look at the pros and cons. So I'll just put a separate session in the chat, and then if you put a thumbs up next to it, then what we'll do is we'll arrange that and sort that out and get everybody together around it. And those that might have been part of the original group, as I said, somebody was leading that but then moved on and it sort of fizzled out. If any is particularly interested in leading that, do let us know, because it would be good to get more people from the community involved in leading on some of these sharing and knowledge information sessions. So please do let us know if you're interested in helping out with that.
Can I just say as well, Joe, actually I forgot, I think, to say that I have just done some slides that we can put out later, just as a reference for how we've done what we've done. So I'm happy for those to go out.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story in such a quick way. I appreciate that. Because the other thing that we want to do, and this is a topic I think we will follow up on, and we'll get people together around it and put in more time around it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about the PMO as a community and as a group, and what we do in terms of taking it forward, is really important. Emma, you've got a question.
Yeah, it was just going back to what I posted in the chat. Did you have in-house skills to develop this, or did you actually get resource externally?
Oh, you're on mute, Kate.
I lost my mouse. I went on mute and then lost the mouse. No, this is actually built for us by an external consultant company who we were put in touch with through our Microsoft provider through the NHS.
Okay, yeah, that's where
we didn't have the skills in-house at all.
I think that's probably one of the things a lot of trusts are going to come across, is not necessarily the build, but also to maintain it going forward. And without developing it in-house, you don't have the skills and the knowledge to kind of deal with the nuances, especially when you start doing connections and power apps and flows and stuff like that. So yeah, it would be good to learn more about the back end connections.
Sure.
And there's potentially something that if we're looking at a lot of organizations needing this or moving in this direction, is there a kind of super group that can kind of develop those skills and be a kind of consultancy for other organizations as well? Because you're absolutely right, Emma, we had the same thing, and a lot of organizations do. Whether you've got something off the shelf or whether you're kind of building something like this, you're still very much dependent on often costly external resource doing that building for you. So there's something maybe as a group, if we can come together and look at, well, what can we do to build the skills internally to then support each other? Thank you. That's a great question. Karen.
Thank you. Just have a follow-up comment, just so that looked great here, absolutely fantastic, and very similar to what we were demoed by so we went through our Microsoft partner, which is Phoenix Software, and it was significantly more expensive, unfortunately, for them to develop this than what Monday.com is costing us, and just with the financial challenges, which I think a few trusts seem to be. So yeah, I would absolutely be interested in and welcome those conversations about what could be developed, because certainly what you can see the benefits of having something like that, Kate.
Oh.
I think would benefit not just myself. I can see my colleague Richard nodding, and I know Bolly's on the call, and I'm sure she's nodding away in the background as well. We can certainly see the benefits. So yeah, would absolutely be really interested to be part of any conversations around that. Thank you.
And maybe we bring our IT and digital colleagues from, you know, Federation for Informatics Professionals together as well on it, because, you know, we have a need, they have, you know, some system capability or knowledge that could help us to maybe steer it in the right direction. So maybe that's something we can work jointly on. Okay, fantastic, thank you. And I'm sorry we haven't got more time to delve into those questions, but we will have an opportunity, and we'll come back and create another event, and we'll offer others to come and talk about what systems they use, but also what can we do about it collectively, because as I said, it is challenging individual organizations, and particularly if you're working collaboratively on systems or providing services across, say, an ICS or across multiple organizations. That adds another layer of challenge that we might need to look into in a bit more depth, how we do it in practice. Thank you, Kate. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. The next thing then, and to really finish off this, is to talk about the PMO network itself. And we used to have a sort of a regular PMO that was sort of monthly. It sort of fizzled out, things changed, but there seems to be more of an appetite now, and then more of an interest. So we've got 58 people on the call right now. We had a few more earlier as well. This is a really great understanding that there is an interest in this and the need for this. So Kate and Louise have been you know, talking about how it can support the PMO network. We struggle with capacity, and what we really need is volunteers from the community to help to run the network and to help to, you know, look for what are the things that we need to talk about, how can we improve it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.